The polished mahogany doors of Harrison Reed Law, Chicago's most prestigious firm, gleamed before me as I stepped out of my Tesla. 5 years ago, I'd walked out of these same doors, leaving behind a guaranteed partner track and my family's century-old legacy. Today, I was returning to buy the entire firm. Ms. Harrison? My assistant Jade's voice came through my earpiece. The board is assembled in the main conference room. Your father just arrived. I smiled, remembering the last family dinner I'd attended before leaving the firm. My father, William Harrison III, had turned an alarming shade of red when I announced my decision. Walking away from Harrison Reed? He'd thundered, while my mother clutched her pearls and my brother Marcus smirked into his bourbon. 3 generations of Harrisons built this firm, Catherine, and you want to throw it all away for some computer program? Now, standing in the lobby where my grandfather's portrait still hung, I straightened my Armani blazer and touched the tablet in my hand. On its screen, Jurasai's latest valuation flashed, $4, $2 billion. Send the final acquisition papers to the board, I told Jade, and make sure the press release is ready. The elevator ride to the 40th floor gave me a moment to reflect. 5 years ago, I was drowning in manila folders and billable hours, watching junior associates burn out trying to manually review thousands of documents for each case. There had to be a better way. The solution came to me during a pro bono case, a tenant rights dispute that our firm wouldn't typically touch. The client couldn't afford our regular fees, but her story moved me. She was facing eviction because of a clerical error, buried in mountains of paperwork. That night, instead of sleeping, I started coding. My computer science degree from MIT, the one my father called a hobby compared to my law degree, finally found its purpose. I built a simple algorithm to analyze rental agreements and identify inconsistencies. The program found the error in minutes. The case was settled the next day. That's when I knew the future of law wasn't in mahogany-lined offices and $1,000 hourly rates. It was in democratizing legal knowledge through technology. The elevator doors opened to a familiar scene. Associates hurried through hallways, arms laden with documents, dark circles under their eyes. Nothing had changed. Catherine, my brother's voice cut through the bustle. Marcus stood by the conference room, every inch the proper heir apparent in his bespoke suit. The board's waiting. Dad's, well, you can imagine. I nodded, remembering the day I'd told Marcus about my plans to leave. You're committing career suicide, he'd said. Tech startups fail every day. The firm is a sure thing. But I'd seen something he hadn't, an industry ripe for disruption. Law firms were charging astronomical fees for work that could be automated, making justice inaccessible to most people. Jurasai would change that. The conference room fell silent as I entered. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, including my father's steely gaze from the head of the table, the same seat he'd occupied for 30 years. Catherine, he said, voice clipped, I assume this is some kind of joke. I set my tablet on the table and pressed play. A holographic display filled the room, showing Jurasai's interface. Over the past 5 years, I began. Jurasai has processed more than 2 million legal documents. We've assisted in 300,000 cases, with a 98.7% accuracy rate. Our AI can analyze precedents, draft contracts, and identify legal issues faster and more accurately than any human team. Parlor tricks, my father scoffed. Real law requires human judgment. I smiled, tapping my screen again. Let's test that theory. I had Jurasai analyze Harrison Reed's last 1,000 cases. The display shifted, showing detailed analytics. Average time spent on document review, 240 hours per case. Average billing, $180,000. Jurasai can do the same work in 3 hours, at a fraction of the cost. Marcus leaned forward, frowning. Our clients pay for expertise, not speed. Do they? I pulled up more data. Your client retention rate has dropped 40% in the last 2 years. Small and medium businesses can't afford your fees. Even major corporations are looking for alternatives. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They knew I was right. Meanwhile, I continued, Jurasai's client base has grown 500% year over year. We handle everything from simple contracts to complex litigation support. Last month, we helped win a Supreme Court case. By replacing lawyers with machines. My father interjected. No, I corrected, by empowering lawyers to work smarter. Our platform handles the routine tasks, freeing attorneys to focus on strategy and client relationships. I turned to the board. Harrison Reed can either adapt to this change or be left behind. I'm offering to help you adapt. The room erupted in murmurs. I could see the divisions forming, the older partners clutching their traditions, the younger ones seeing the opportunity. "The offer expires in 24 hours, I said, standing. "I suggest you think carefully about the future of law." As I turned to leave, my father's voice stopped me. "You'd buy your own family's firm? Destroy our legacy?" I met his eyes. "I'm not destroying our legacy, Dad. I'm evolving it. Grandfather started this firm to help people access justice. That's exactly what I'm doing, just with better tools." In the elevator down, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your grandfather would be proud. He always said the law should serve everyone, not just the wealthy." I touched the locket at my neck, the one grandfather had given me when I started law school. Inside was his favorite quote, "Justice delayed is justice denied." Back in my office at Jurasei headquarters, I watched the sun set over Chicago's skyline. Our space couldn't be more different from Harrison Reed's traditional offices: open floor plans, collaborative spaces, and walls of screens displaying real-time data from our AI systems. Jade appeared with my evening briefing. "The Small Business Association wants to expand our partnership. We've helped over 50,000 small businesses with legal services this year alone." That was the real validation, not the billions in valuation, but the people we were helping. Small business owners who could finally afford proper legal advice, individuals fighting unfair evictions, nonprofits protecting their missions. My phone lit up with another call from Marcus. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what he'd say. He'd try to negotiate, to protect his place in the old system, but the old system was dying. Looking out at the city lights, I thought about all the people out there who needed legal help but couldn't afford traditional firms. Tomorrow, one way or another, Harrison Reed would step into the future. The question was, would they do it willingly, or would I have to drag them? The next morning, I arrived at Jurasei's headquarters just as Bloomberg released the headline, "Legal tech giant Jurasei acquires century-old Harrison Reed. Traditional law meets artificial intelligence." My phone immediately exploded with notifications. Messages from former colleagues, law school classmates, and family members I hadn't heard from in years. But one message stood out, from my grandfather's former partner, retired Judge Michael Sullivan. "Your grandfather didn't build Harrison Reed to be a monument to the past. He built it to serve justice. You're carrying that torch forward." Jade appeared at my door. "The transition team is ready. And, your father's here." I looked up, surprised. William Harrison III stood in my office doorway, looking both out of place and impossibly old in his traditional suit. This was his first time visiting Jurasei. "Quite different from our offices," he said, taking in the modern space. "The law is different now, Dad," I replied, gesturing for him to sit. "The world is different." He settled into a chair, running his fingers along the sleek carbon fiber armrest. "The board voted yes," he said finally. "Though I suspect you knew they would." I nodded. The numbers had been too compelling to ignore. Harrison Reed's billable hours were down 30% year over year, while operating costs kept rising. They needed this merger as much as I needed their institutional knowledge and client relationships. "Show me," he said suddenly. "Show me what made you walk away from everything we built." I pulled up Jurasei's main interface on the wall screen. "Watch this." "Jade, load the Peterson case." The screen filled with documents, thousands of pages of contracts, emails, and court filings from a complex corporate dispute. Traditional document review would take a team of associates weeks, I explained. Jurasei can analyze it all in minutes, identifying key issues, conflicts, and potential strategies. The AI worked its magic, highlighting relevant sections, drawing connections, and building a case strategy in real time. My father leaned forward, despite himself. "Now watch this," I said, pulling up another screen. "This is our Access to Justice initiative." The display showed a map dotted with thousands of points of light, each representing someone using our basic legal services platform. We provide free legal document review and basic advice to anyone who needs it. Last year, we helped prevent 10,000 wrongful evictions, assisted 50,000 small businesses with compliance issues, and helped domestic violence survivors get protection orders. "At what cost to your bottom line?" he asked, the businessman in him emerging. "It's not about profit, Dad. It's about purpose. Though, if you're asking, our premium services to law firms and corporations more than fund our public interest work." Before he could respond, Jade interrupted. The Harrison Reed transition team has arrived. The next few hours were a blur of meetings, as we began the delicate process of merging a century-old law firm with a cutting-edge tech company. Some partners were enthusiastic, others resistant. Change is never easy, especially in law. By evening, I was back in my office when Marcus appeared. So, he said, dropping into a chair. What happens to me in this brave new world of yours? I studied my brother, seeing past his expensive suit to the uncertainty beneath. That depends. Are you ready to learn something new? He laughed harshly. You want me to become a programmer? No, I said, pulling up another display. I want you to help me bridge the gap between traditional law and legal tech. We need people who understand both worlds. Over the next hour, I showed him how Juris AI could enhance rather than replace human lawyers. His eyes lit up when he saw the potential. This could actually work, he admitted finally. It already is working, I replied. Look at these numbers. I showed him our latest statistics, 90% reduction in document review time, 70% cost savings for clients, 99% accuracy rate in contract analysis. But more importantly, I showed him our impact metrics, millions of people accessing legal help who never could before. Weeks passed as we integrated Harrison Reed into Juris AI. The transformation wasn't just technological, it was cultural. We were creating something entirely new, a hybrid organization that combined the best of both worlds. One morning, I arrived to find my father in the collaborative workspace, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, learning the Juris AI system from one of our tech leads. Dad? I said, surprised. He turned, a slight smile on his face. Your grandfather used to say that the law should evolve with society. I didn't understand what he meant until now. That evening, I called an all-hands meeting. Both Harrison Reed staff and Juris AI employees filled our main hall. Today marks 1 month since our merger, I began. And I want to share something with you. I pulled up our latest impact report. In the past month, we've helped more people access legal services than Harrison Reed did in its first 50 years. Not because the old firm wasn't excellent, it was. But because we found a way to scale that excellence, to make it accessible to everyone. The room was silent, traditional lawyers and tech experts alike taking in the implications. This isn't about replacing lawyers with machines, I continued. It's about empowering lawyers to help more people. It's about making justice accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford $1,000 an hour. I switched to a new display, showing our global impact map. Next month, we're launching in Europe and Asia. By the end of the year, we'll be providing basic legal services in 100 countries, in 30 languages. The room erupted in applause. Even my father, standing in the back, was nodding. Later that night, as I sat in my office reviewing expansion plans, my mother appeared. I found something you should see, she said, placing a worn leather journal on my desk. It was your grandfather's. I opened it carefully. Inside, in his precise handwriting, was an entry from 1960. The law must serve all people, not just the privileged few. Technology will change everything, we must be ready to change with it. The future belongs to those who can see beyond tradition to possibility. Tears pricked my eyes. All this time, I'd thought I was breaking with tradition, when really I was fulfilling my grandfather's vision. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus, just used Juris AI to win a pro bono case. Never felt better about being a lawyer. I smiled, thinking of how far we'd come. The old guard was learning to embrace change, while the tech team was learning to appreciate legal tradition. We were creating something unprecedented, a true bridge between law and technology. A week later, I stood on stage at the American Bar Association's annual conference, delivering the keynote address. The future of law isn't about choosing between human expertise and artificial intelligence, I told the packed auditorium. It's about combining them to serve justice better than either could alone. I glanced at the front row, where my father sat next to our lead AI engineer, both nodding in agreement. 5 years ago, I left a prestigious law firm to pursue a crazy dream. Today, that dream is helping millions of people access justice who never could before. but we're just getting started. The screen behind me showed our next initiative: AI-powered legal education for communities without access to lawyers, virtual courts for remote areas, real-time translation for international cases. The law has always evolved to meet society's needs, I concluded. Today, we have tools our predecessors could only dream of. The question is, will we use them to preserve the status quo, or to fulfill the true promise of justice for all? The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for me, it was for every person who'd ever dared to challenge tradition in service of a greater good. Back in my office that evening, I added a new quote to our wall: "Justice isn't just about knowing the law, it's about making it work for everyone." Below it, I hung my grandfather's portrait next to our company's mission statement: "Bridging tradition and innovation to make justice accessible to all." My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Dad: "Your grandfather would be proud, so am I." If you've ever stood at the crossroads between tradition and innovation, ever faced criticism for seeing a future others couldn't imagine, or ever had to choose between the safe path and the right one, remember this: sometimes the greatest respect we can show to tradition is to help it evolve. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about transforming industries and challenging conventions, because every revolution starts with someone crazy enough to question the way things have always been done. Remember, the future belongs to those who can bridge the gap between what is and what could be. What will you bridge?